Hey guys, today we are going to start coil pots. So to start out, you need some pretty wet clay. This is super wet, squishy, straight out of the bag, new clay. And we're going to start by making a pickle kind of shape. What that does is it compresses the clay. So if there's any bubbles or anything trapped in the clay, it kind of works that out. It also makes it an easier shape to roll into a coil. And then we're going to use rounded hands. Rounded hands, if your hands do this rounded thing, make easier rounded coils, I found. So you're going to pull your fingers back and then use this sort of rocking motion when you're rolling your coils. So start with your hands close together and move your hands further apart from each other. And try not to push down on the clay. The tendency is to try to push down, but if you push down, that's going to give you flat coils. So if you just use your rocking motion with your hands and move your hands farther and farther apart from each other, the clay will elongate on its own. You really don't have to press down on the clay. Just speed up here. If you have a thicker spot, like kind of in the middle, you can just use one hand. You can stop rolling when your coil is consistently about the thickness of your finger, all the way down. Now this coil is quite long. It's about 3 feet long. You don't have to work with these giant coils. If you don't feel comfortable with them, you can break the coil into pieces as well. Then on the end, we just want to make sure that there's no open areas. We want to make sure everything is nice and smooth. And then we're going to start rolling it like a snail shell to make the base of the pot. Just roll it up, make sure that there's no gaps, and keep rolling until you get the coil base to the size that you want for the base of your pot. If you need to, like I said, you don't have to work with these huge coils. You can break them into pieces. All right. And then once you've decided about how big you want your coil to be or your base to be, you're going to break off the coil at a 45-degree angle. Anytime you break or join coils, always think in terms of 45-degree angles, fit together so that they make a straight line. Then you're going to smear the base of your pot together. So you don't have to smear both sides together. You could just do the inside of the pot. I would not only do the outside, that will leave lots of places for bacteria to get into the inside, but you can just smooth one side or the other. When I smooth my coils together, I kind of smooth in every direction. That way I found I get fewer cracks. Some people prefer just to smooth their coils from the outside towards the middle. Um, you can kind of experiment a little bit, figure out what works best for you, but I like to go every which way. And then I'm going to use kind of the fatty part of my finger and just get rid of any little clay crumbs. Now for us, I think I'm going to go ahead and smooth both sides. We're just going to smear everything together so that it's one nice continuous slab of clay. And then because I smoothed both sides together, I'm still going to get rid of all of like the little clay crummies. But because I've smoothed both sides, I can actually flip it and pat it a little bit, and that again will help compress everything together. You can't always do that if you have left one side showing the coils. Then I'm going to just kind of clean up the edges and the shape and reshape it into a better circular shape. This doesn't have to be a circle. It could be an oval or square, something else. You could reshape it. You can't reshape it as easily if you leave the coils exposed on one side. Now, it's okay if it's not perfect. When the clay is this wet and this pliable, it's kind of the ugly duckling phase of the pot. So it's okay that it's not perfect. We'll clean it up later. When you start adding your walls, you want to start with your coil again at a 45-degree angle. What that does is it creates kind of a ramp for your coils as they start to stack. So you don't get a weird hole right on the inside there where the coils meet. If you don't have that 45-degree angle, you get like a weird hole and it will likely open up when the clay shrinks. So again, since I'm going to add another coil, I'm going to reshape the end of my previous coil into that 45-degree angle. Got to roll another coil. So we start with that pickle, get the clay compressed, and then roll it out. And using the same motion, that kind of rocking motion with your hands, and stop when it is about the thickness of your finger consistently all through the whole length of the coil. Then when you're ready to add another coil, we need to scratch wet weld. So I've got my old coil at the 45-degree angle. I'm going to start my new coil at a 45-degree angle as well. Okay. And then we're going to scratch. So you can use any tool to scratch, a needle tool. This is one of my daughter's plastic forks. Anything works that can get you some texture. And then you want some water. Use slip works fine as well. This clay is really wet, so just a dab of water will work just fine. If it was a little bit more dry, then you would want slip. And we're going to join our 45s together like a puzzle so that it creates a straight line. Again, that avoids that weird little hole in the side of your pot. We do not want that. And then you just continue wrapping your coil around. Again, you don't have to use these huge unwieldy coils. You can break them into smaller pieces. Just remember to always join coils at 45-degree angles. And we don't need it to be perfect just yet. Remember, this is the ugly duckling phase. It's okay. All right, now I would not go too much higher than 4 or 5 coils at a time without joining it because eventually your hand will not fit inside the pot. So I'm going to stop here and I'm going to use my non-dominant hand as a brace behind the wall of the pot, and I'm going to use my finger to smear downward. And when I do that, I'm going to move just a little bit of clay from each coil downward and join all of the coils together and to the base, kind of all in one motion. And I want to make sure as I'm doing that that I'm not getting too much clay at the juncture between the wall of the pot and the floor of the pot. Sometimes that's an easy place to get your clay too thick. And if the walls of the pot and the floor of the pot are not even, then it can crack. So I want to just go all the way around, join everything, keep it as smooth as I can. You can use like the fatty part of your finger again here to keep it nice and smooth. And get everything joined to the base and to the coils themselves. Clean it up a bit. The inside should be pretty clean. We don't want any of those clay crummies. We don't want anything that could turn jagged or sharp once it goes through the kiln. Nice and smooth on the inside. Now, the outside. I do not recommend doing what I am doing in the video. I just picked it up and turned it on its side in my hand. Please don't do that. I had to do it for the video so you could see, but you should leave it flat. What we're doing here is we're joining the clay the same way, except now we're going from the bottom up. So we're just pulling the clay up to join the coils on the outside. Again, you don't have to join the coils on the outside. You could just leave them exposed if that's a look that you want. I'm going to go all the way around and do the same thing. Just pull that clay up and join everything on the outside. I want mine to be smooth on the outside. Okay. And the little clay crummies are a lot easier to fix on the outside later, so you can clean those up if you want, but we can worry about that later. Then we're going to go through and make sure that the thickness of our clay is consistent after everything is joined together. So we don't want any really thick spots and really thin spots because those are places where the clay will want to crack as it dries. So I'm just gently squeezing any thicker areas that I feel. Also at this point, I am kind of getting the bowl into the general shape that I want. Once it becomes leather hard, you're not going to be able to reshape it very much. So we want to make sure that as it's drying and getting itself to the leather hard stage, we want to make sure that it's already established in the form that we want. So I'm just kind of solidifying everything, making sure that the general form is the way we want. Again, it doesn't have to be perfectly clean. We'll get to that later once it's leather hard. All right, guys, good luck.